putting this parsha in a file, last year's parsha, so it's just amazing how fast this year's gone by. But parsha Vayelech, now Vayelech means and he went. And so the title is, and he went, where are we going? So we're going to consider some of the highlights of Devarim chapter 31. You'll find in the body of the lesson that Parasha Vayelech is the shortest parasha that we do. It's only one chapter long. So, but let's have a talk with our Elohim, and then we'll take a look at some pretty interesting things. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity to study your word. We thank you so much that you've given us this time, this Yamim Noraim, these days to reflect and think about where we are, where we're going, what we need to change. And tonight, as we continue these studies that lead us to Yom Kippur, we ask that you will open our eyes, open our ears, and open our hearts, so that we can see, hear, and understand what your word tells us and what your spirit leads us in. And we thank you for it in the name of your restoration, your redemption, and your deliverance. Yahshua. Amen. Okay. So reading this Torah portion, we find Moses, his last instructions. This is basically what's going to amount to be the last day of his life. Last week, and we didn't really do it last week, but we mentioned it briefly in during our Yom Teruah celebration, that in Parsha Nitzavim, that we learned that we had freedom to make a choice, either to follow after good and receive the blessings, or follow after the bad or the evil and receive the curses. That choice is ours, and as we grow closer to Yom Kippur, we have to ask ourselves, when we said all that Yahuwah has said we will do, when we made that declaration at Yom Teruah, did we really mean it? Question that we asked several questions in Tuesday's study. We looked at the 117th Psalm. But a question that I was sitting at my desk today and really jumped out at me, the people that I teach, is, do I believe in Elohim? Do I believe that Yahuwah my Elohim is real? Because if I say that I do, then everything that I'm doing over this next week should be taken very, very seriously. If I don't, or if I think that Elohim is only something that's viable for a few hours a week when I'm in Torah study, or when I go to church, I use that with my other classes, then I really have to ask, where am I? We have this time now to really, really look at where we're at. Because something that caught me in chapter 31 was verse 2, when he said, this is Moses, he says, I am 123 years old this day. I can no more go out or come in. And Yahweh said unto me, you shall not go over this Jordan. And I read that, and I came to a realization that our lifetime is the time that Elohim has given us to get it right. And we say that 120 years is a representation of the lifespan of humankind. So again, this time of year is very, very important for us to really, really think about where we're at, where we're going, what do I need to change. So Vayelech, like I said, is the shortest Torah reading of the year. It consists only of one chapter, 30 verses. The reading for this particular Shabbat which comes after Yom Teruah and before Yom Kippur, falls during the 10 days of awe that are known as Yamin Noraim. These are the days of awe. During this time, we are to seek Yahweh with sincerity, examining ourselves and our day-to-day lives to find places that need our attention. And then, if necessary, make teshuvah, make the adjustments. During this Shabbat, that's also called Shabbat Shuvah, that means the Shabbat of return, we would read a special reading from the book of Hosea that starts, Shuvah Yisrael, that means return, O Israel. And this is Hosea chapter 14 that we're going to read here. It says, return, O Israel, to Yahweh Elohecha. Remember when we said Elohecha, that means your Elohim, but he's not just talking to the group, but he's talking to each individual person. So this is talking to us specifically. It says, return to Israel, to Yahweh Elohecha, for you have stumbled in your iniquity. Take with you words and return unto Yahweh. Say unto him, forgive all the iniquity and accept that which is good. So we will render for bullocks the offering of our lips. Instead of making these sacrifices and going through all the motions of all this tradition, seriously think about it and speak to Elohim your feelings. Speak to Elohim your teshuvah. Speak it out loud before Elohim. Return to Israel. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does Shuvah Yisrael mean? Return to the point in your life that Elohim prevails. Okay, we say Yisrael means Elohim prevails. Return to the point in your life that Elohim prevails. It says, take with you words and return unto Yahweh and say to him, forgive all iniquity. If we're going to ask him to forgive iniquity, then we have to know where we're at. What iniquity have I brought myself into over the last year? What do I need to change? These are so important. You know, we consider the questions that we developed out of the 117th Psalm last week, and we add these ideas to that we take time to really think about where we're at. Yom Kippur is coming up. We have an entire day of fasting that we're able to really concentrate on this. This is kind of like that super concentrated milk that we get that's thick and sweet. So it's really things that we need to concentrate on. During this time of self-reflection, we are to seek Elohim while looking inside of ourselves. This special time of year helps us to become better people and more capable of showing love, not only to our Elohim, but to one another. Yahweh responds to these verses from Hosea 14 in the following way. This is what Elohim says. I will heal their backsliding. I will love them freely, for my anger is turned away from him. Okay? His anger will turn away from us. I will be as the dew unto Israel. He shall blossom as the lily and cast forth his roots as Lebanon. There's prosperity to be had. And we read more of the blessing and the growth as we read on in Hosea. His branches shall spread, and his beauty shall be as the olive tree, and his fragrances as the Lebanon. They that dwell under his shadow shall again make grain to grow. Keep that in mind. Make grain to grow. That's very important as we go into the parasha. Make grain to grow. And shall blossom as the vine. That's also very important as we go on into what we're going to look at. So make grain to grow and shall blossom as a vine. The scent thereof shall be as the wine of Lebanon. Ephraim. shall go up. What have I to do any more with idols? Let's say, what do I have to do any more with idolatry? Ephraim will go up. Ephraim is a representation of the Gentile world. That when the time comes, that even the Gentiles will recognize that they are in idolatry. What have I to do any more with idolatry? As for me, I respond and look on him. I am like a leafy cypress tree. From me is your fruit found. Okay? That we will turn away from idolatry into a pure worship, and there is where we will find the fruit of Elohim coming from us. That will be a leafy tree. If we're a leafy tree, that means that we are a well-watered tree, that we're producing fruit, because we have made teshuvah, and we have yoked ourselves to our Elohim through his living water, and it nourishes us. Whoso is wise, let him understand these things. Whoso is prudent, let him know them. For the ways of Yahweh are right, and the righteous do walk in them, but transgressors do stumble in them. And that is something that is so true. We study the word of Elohim, and we study it to understand what it means, not based on the ideas of some doctrine, so that we don't stumble. It's like Paul said, study to show yourself approved. And that's the Aramaic version. Our Greek versions have a word that says simply be diligent. Aramaic literally tells us that we have to study. We have to put forth the effort to understand. And that's an important thing, because we talked about the 144,000. The thing about the 144,000 is that they knew the song, and they understood the meaning of the song. And that relates back to the 32nd Psalm, which we'll actually study and break up into pieces, but we have to know what Elohim is telling us. So this Shabbat is also called Shabbat Teshuvah, or the Shabbat of repentance, because it calls the people of Elohim to turn from their sin and rebellion and return to Elohim. So we begin our Torah portion at chapter 31 of Devarim, verse 1, that says, "And Moses went and spoke these words unto all of Israel." In this verse, that we recognize that the words that Moses spoke were the words of the Aleph and the Tav. And if you will look in the Hebrew, it says, Et HaDevarim. Et HaDevarim. We'll notice that there's an Aleph and a Tav before the word, or before the word for the word, or and spoke. Okay? So he spoke the word of the Aleph and Tav. He spoke forward the instruction of Elohim. These were the very words of Yahweh Elohim, and he spoke them all, kol, a word that means whole and complete. These words that come from Torah, these words spoken from the Aleph and the Tav, are what make us whole and complete if we will listen and apply them to our lives. We have to be willing to listen to them and apply them to our lives. Like a broken record, when we say Shema Yisrael, we are saying, I will make it a point in my life that I will perceive, discern, understand, obey, apply your word to my life, and I will be content because you, Elohim, prevail in my life. Yahuwah Eloheinu, today, yesterday, and tomorrow, in everything there is, everything there was, everything there will be, and that you and you alone are my mighty judge who has the authority to redeem me, deliver me, not just from sin and death, but from whatever I get myself into, and restore me if I will simply believe and receive Yahshua. your restoration, your redemption, your deliverance that comes to me in my name. And through the blood that Yahshua spilled, he restored the relationship that you had with Adam. So the relationship between you and I is restored. And we are now in a covenant together. Okay? This is a beautiful thing. And Moses went and spoke these words unto Israel, a phrase that we would just blow off. And then it says, and he said unto them, I am 120 years old this day. I can no more go out and come in. And Yahweh has said unto me, you shall not go over this Jordan. And this is something that we really, really need to pay attention to and think about. It's in this verse that we have to grasp the seriousness of making teshuvah. Moses states that he is 120 years old and can go no further. But it's the statement that Yahweh has said unto me, you shall not go over this Jordan, that we have to realize that as great as Moses was, he was hindered from crossing over the thing that dragged him down because he did not fully make teshuvah for striking the rock instead of speaking to the rock. We go to that, and from that point that he struck the rock to this verse, and we can go all the way through the end of Devarim, never once does Moses say, I'm sorry. Never once does he say, I sinned. The only thing that we hear Moses say is, Elohim, please let me cross over. We can ask for things, but if we don't make teshuvah, Elohim doesn't listen. And this is a very, very important thing that we have to understand. He didn't fully make teshuvah for striking the rock instead of speaking to it. He honored himself instead of Yahweh Elohim. He simply argued with Elohim. In this verse, we must truly ask ourselves, have I tried to justify something that is contrary to Torah instead of understanding it and making teshuvah? Or worse yet, have I dictated Yahweh's Torah to him instead of paying heed to his instruction within its pages? Have I tried to dictate his Torah to him? Now that's a different thing from reminding Elohim when we pray that your Torah says, and I'm reminding you that you have to stand on your word, as opposed to me trying to use Torah to judge my Elohim. Okay? So I would venture to say, though, that we all have at one point in our lives or another, and that's simply the truth. We try sometimes to make Torah, the instruction of Elohim, justify what we're doing, and we'll take something out of context. It happens a lot. We can overcome adversity and self-deceit if we will seek Elohim and allow him to act in our lives. He has given us Yahshua to help us to cross over those things that drag us down, and has allowed us to overcome the obstacles in our life. The word Jordan means to descend. It means to drag down. And it was Joshua that led the children of Israel over the Jordan. And it's Joshua that leads us over a spiritual Jordan, those things that hinder us and drag us down. That it's in the name of Joshua that we're able to get over those. So consider these verses again from the Torah portion. This is verse 3. Yahweh Elohecha will go over before you. He will destroy these nations from before you, and shall dispossess them. And Joshua, he shall go over before you, as Yahweh has spoken. Well, I don't think we have a whole lot of nations in front of us that need to be destroyed, and we don't have a lot of nations that need to be dispossessed. Or do we? So, let's consider what some of these words mean. The word for the nations is kagoyim, that in